The crystalline spires of the Celestian Palace had witnessed countless ceremonies, treaties, and declarations of war spanning 3 millennia. Yet never had the Grand Hall fallen into such profound silence as it did on that fateful evening, when Princess Lisa defied everything her people held sacred. Lisa stood at the edge of the observation deck, her luminescent skin casting soft purple hues against the polished obsidian floors, her 3 eyes the mark of Celestian royalty fixed upon the distant blue marble. Suspended in the darkness of space, Earth, a planet her mother, Queen Nisara, had deemed primitive, unworthy of diplomatic relations, and certainly unsuitable for any form of personal connection. But Lisa had always been different. While her sisters obsessed over territorial expansion and military conquests, she spent countless hours in the archives, studying alien civilizations with genuine curiosity rather than strategic interest. That's where she first encountered references to humanity, their art, their chaotic history, their inexplicable capacity for both destruction and breathtaking kindness. The human delegation had arrived 3 cycles ago. They came seeking an alliance against the Voroth Empire, a mutual enemy that threatened both their worlds. Among the ambassadors was Vin Diesel, a decorated commander whose reputation preceded him. The briefings described him as ruthless in battle, strategic in negotiation, and utterly committed to protecting his species. What the briefings hadn't mentioned was his curiosity. Their first meeting had been accidental. Lisa had been in the Botanical Gardens, one of the few places in the palace where she could find solitude, when she heard an unfamiliar voice, expressing wonder at the bioluminescent flowers that bloomed only under the light of their twin moons. "I've never seen anything like this," Vin had said, more to himself than anyone else. He was alone, having apparently slipped away from his handlers during a diplomatic dinner. Lisa should have alerted the guards. Protocol demanded it. Instead, she stepped from the shadows. They're called Lunaries Aeternus. They've been growing in this garden for over 1,000 years. Vin had spun around, his hand instinctively moving toward a weapon that wasn't there. His eyes so unlike hers, with only 2, yet somehow expressive in ways she found fascinating, widened in recognition. "Princess Lisa, I apologize, I didn't mean to trespass." "You're not trespassing," she replied, surprising herself with the words. "These gardens are open to honored guests." That conversation should have been their last. But at WASN single quotes T. Over the following weeks, they found reasons to cross paths. A chance encounter in the archives, a brief exchange during a state function. Each interaction was proper, brief, entirely appropriate. Yet with each meeting, Lisa felt something shifting inside her, a growing connection that transcended species, culture, and the vast gulf of space that separated their worlds. Vin felt it too. She could see it in the way his guarded expression softened when they spoke, how he asked questions about her people not as a strategist gathering intelligence, but as someone genuinely interested in understanding. They began to meet secretly, always briefly, always carefully. Lisa showed him the hidden observatories where ancient astronomers had mapped the cosmos. Vin shared stories of Earth, its oceans, its diversity, the stubborn hope of humanity even in their darkest hours. He spoke of loss, having witnessed friends fall in battles against the Voroth. She shared her own isolation, the burden of being different in a culture that valued conformity above all else. On Earth, Vin told her one evening as they stood beneath the light of the twin moons, "There's an old saying, the heart wants what it wants. I never understood it until now." Lisa's central eye, the one connected most directly to her emotional core, had begun to glow brighter, a physiological response she couldn't control. "My people have no such saying. We're taught that duty and desire are separate paths, and one must always choose duty. And which do you choose?" The question hung between them like a suspended star. The answer came during the Grand Assembly, when Queen Nisara was to formally announce the terms of the alliance with Earth. The entire court had gathered, nobles in their ceremonial armor, advisors with their calculating gazes, and the human delegation standing with careful diplomatic neutrality. Lisa watched her mother outline the treaty terms with characteristic precision. It was a good agreement, one that would benefit both species. But as she listened, she realized that this alliance would send the humans back to Earth, and Vin would go with them. The war against the Voroth would be fought across distant sectors, and she would never see him again. Something broke inside her then. Perhaps it was the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on her shoulders. Perhaps it was the realization that duty without genuine connection was an empty throne. Or perhaps it was simply that her heart had finally overruled her mind. As the treaty signing began, Lisa stepped forward. The court turned toward her, expecting a ceremonial blessing. Instead, she walked past her mother's shocked expression, past the confused nobles, directly toward the human delegation, toward Vin. The hall fell silent. Lisa's people didn't embrace. Physical contact was reserved for combat or sacred rituals. To embrace someone publicly, especially an alien, especially in the presence of the queen, was unthinkable. She did it anyway. Her arms wrapped around Vin's shoulders, and his, after a moment of stunned hesitation, encircled her waist. The gesture was simple, human, and utterly revolutionary. "I choose this," Lisa whispered, loud enough for all to hear. "I choose connection over isolation, understanding over fear, him over everything I was told I should want." The silence stretched impossibly long. Queen Thesara's expression cycled through shock, fury, and something else, something that might have been the faintest recognition of her daughter's courage. Wenvin's hand gently touched Lisa's face, all three of her eyes meeting his. The palace didn't erupt in chaos. The guards didn't rush forward. Instead, something unprecedented happened. One of Lisa's sisters began to illuminate, a sign of emotional resonance. Then another noble, then another. The soft purple glow spread through the hall like dawn breaking across a dark world, as the Celestian people witnessed not a betrayal of their values, but an evolution of them. Queen Thesara finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of millennia, but also the flexibility of wisdom. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "it is time we learned what humanity has always known, that the strength of any civilization lies not in its isolation, but in its capacity to connect across the impossible distances that separate us." Lisa looked up at Vin, whose eyes reflected the luminescent glow surrounding them. In that moment, in that embrace, they weren't human and alien, soldier and princess, or representatives of distant worlds. They were simply two souls who had found each other in the vast darkness of space and chosen to hold on. The palace may have fallen silent, but it was the silence before a new story begins.